welcome to Afternoon Tea from Bookends. I'm Anita.
And I'm Gerald.
And today we're going to pick up where we left off last time. And the one thing I realised after we'd finished recording was I didn't tell the viewer what I think is the most important question a writer can ask.
Crikey. They'll be waiting.
They'll all be... I mean, I'm surprised I haven't been inundated on Twitter, but I haven't. And the question is, what if? Great question. We're not going to deal with that right now. I'm going to ask you some questions.
Oh, exciting.
From this book. You don't know which questions I'm going to answer.
Nope. Or ask, even.
I'm going to ask.
It's going well, isn't it?
I ask, you answer. So,
cheers.
Here we are. These are from 100 Questions for Fiction Writers.
Oh, who wrote that?
And infinite ways to answer them. And it's a kind of workbook. And I wrote it because I believe that asking questions is a really essential creative tool for getting you out of any, getting you unstuck.
Okay.
From anything. So, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Ask away.
First one is about your writing.
Okay.
All about your writing. So, how do you physically write? What do you write on? What do you write with?
I use a mixture of computer and notebook. I generally start off with computer because most of my ideas come when I'm staring at a screen. I make some notes, some in a text editor. I put them to one side and let them stew for a while. At some point, I then use a program called Scrivener, which is a word processor designed specifically for writers, which I love. And I also use an app called Plotter, which helps me plot books. So I've got Plotter for plotting, I've got Scrivener for writing. I use Word to export to read the manuscript and read the notes, because it helps to read in a different medium to that which you write in.
That's interesting.
And sometimes I will use a big A3 piece of paper to draw graphically the relationship between some of the characters and who they're related to, and just to get it straight in my head. So a variety of different mediums.
Thank you. Next question.
Pleasure.
This is from a section on getting ideas. And the question's a really simple one. What inspires you?
Oh, what inspires me? What inspires me is a sense of injustice in the world, a sense of right and wrong, and I have and continue to spend far too long shouting at people on the internet because they're obviously wrong. But I've found that it's a much better way to get my inner feelings out through fiction. Yes. So the themes of my books are the things I care mostly about. So that's my inspiration. So when I see a situation where something isn't right, and I feel somebody is not getting a fair crack of the whip, I can then build a story out from that.
Excellent. Very good. So your books are called things like Corruption and Deceit.
Things
like that.
Yes.
Good. Very, very clear.
Very clear.
Okay. Do you ever... This is from a section of the book called Writing a Scene.
Right.
There's 10 questions in each section of this book. And this one's about writing a scene. Okay. We both write in scenes, which I think is interesting. Do you use a scene to trail future actions or events, and do you think that builds suspense if you do that?
I do. You have to be careful. I don't like when I read, and he had no idea what was going to happen in the future, or if only he'd have known how this would affect him at some point. It's a bit too blunt instrument. So I'll have things like I'm just doing a final read through of something now. Two people have been speaking, and one of them goes off, and then the third person comes in. He said, "You look a bit distracted." He said, "Oh, it's just something they said. Oh, it's nothing." But there's a clue in what he said, which will then come out later on. So it just gets the reader sort of thinking, "Oh, that's interesting."
Especially if the reader's already picked up on the clue that they've said.
Yes. Possibly.
That's working in... Yes.
Yeah.
Next question from settings in your book. Is there a location that you use frequently in your books, or a location that really means something to you that you would reuse?
That's interesting. In my thrillers, they're in different locations, so that's... I think because we live fairly close to the sea here, the sea is quite a strong influence at the moment. So the series of crime books I'm writing now are all based around a seaside town called Harcourt Bay. And it has similarities to a little town not far away from here. So so I think it's important to get a sense of the place, to get a feel for the place, and to be able to convey that to the readers. So yes, I've written things in the past where I've just looked at them through Street View and Google Maps and described them. But I think you need to actually physically go there and listen to the sounds and smell the smells and just take in what's going on around you.
Excellent. Okay, next one from writing dialogue.
Okay.
Do your characters speak to everyone in the same way, or do they speak differently to different people?
They speak... Oh, that's interesting.
Is it?
Yes, because that's not the question I thought it was initially.
Okay.
In answer to that question, they always speak in the same way no matter who they're talking to. But obviously some characters talk in a different way to other characters.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think it's important to try and convey something about the character to how they speak. So in the book I'm just finishing now, which is called Body on the Beach, which may be out by the time this comes out.
Hopefully, yeah.
There is a character there who's not terribly well educated. So his dialogue is dropped H's and incorrect word usage and things like that. But he's an interesting character. So I think it's important to show he's not highly educated, but he has interesting things to say. So but yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I've wanted a character to talk in a different way to different people.
Okay.
Have you?
I don't know really. Children, maybe they speak to children differently.
Yes, that's true.
One character speaks to her mother very differently to the way she speaks to others in the,
Yes.
to her friends and
There is that, yes.
peers. So yeah, there is that. And also the interesting thing you said about characters having a voice, because when you're watching a film, you can identify people by what they look like, whereas in a book you can imagine what they look like, but identifying them by how they sound on the page is quite, and it's a skill as well.
It is, yeah, it is.
So the next question is from the page turning quality.
Oh, crikey! Right.
This is something that's really important to me, and the questions in this section are really more like a checklist of have you done all these things, and they're really a checklist for that awful bit in the middle of a book where you lose your way a little bit and it goes a bit floppy.
The saggy middle.
The saggy middle, that's right. So I'm just going to ask you the first question from here. The question is, are the stakes high enough to keep the reader reading? And this is very specifically if you're checking a manuscript. So I want to ask you, how do you make sure that the stakes are high enough to keep the reader reading without it becoming ridiculous?
That's a hard question. You can do that by having tension and jeopardy and conflict with more than one character. So you can have even secondary characters you can have in some sort of jeopardy or in something that makes them anxious, so the reader gets concerned for them. It's important that the reader can associate with our heroes, the good guys in the book, and so will then respond when they're in some danger or in an awkward position or a situation that makes them feel difficult or under pressure. So I think that's important, and I think there is a school of thought which says every scene has to have sort of rising and falling tension. I don't know if that's necessary, because that can get quite tiring, but certainly I think you put different characters under different tensions at different times.
And I think it's genre specific as well, and what the stakes are for that person.
Yes,
are quite genre specific. We watched something on telly the other night where it was a spy thing. We watch a lot of spies and adventures and action things.
Yeah.
And in this case, there were three.
It's not just me.
It's not
you
just
like them too.
I love them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So particularly this particular spy program.
Oh, Spooks.
Spooks. My favourite. So there were three characters in Spooks, and it was all coming together to this one story plot resolution. But each character was in a different place, all under threat of losing that, of being killed basically.
Right.
And they kept cutting between them.
Yes.
And each time you were kind of, to keep, and you couldn't not watch it to the end because you needed to know. And that's what I mean about making it extreme. That wouldn't work in a rom-com.
No.
But it might work in something you're writing.
Yeah.
Better in something you're writing.
You still have to have tension in a rom-com, don't you? You still have to have things that go wrong and things that could go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. You need that, and you need jeopardy.
Yes.
So for the, but it's a very different kind of jeopardy.
It's very different.
And it's very rarely life and death.
Yeah.
Although it might feel like it for the heroine. And talking of that, do you enjoy? This is the next section is readers. Do you enjoy reading the genre you write?
I think it's essential when we do workshops and we talk about cover art, and we talk about making it genre appropriate, and there are certain styles and certain themes that indicate what sort of genre it is, and I think it's the same with your reading as well. I think you have to understand the stories, you have to understand how they're constructed and how they work. And I can't think of any examples off the top of my head now, but I think you've got to. I can't write romance. I try to write romance. I can't write romance. I've tried to write comedy. I can't write comedy. I can be funny sometimes, but I can't write comedy. So I think you over a period of time, by all means, I think you should try writing different things. One year I was determined I was going to write a fantasy book. Couldn't do it. So I think after a while you settle into the things, and it certainly with me it was the things that I like to read, crime and thrillers, and crime thrillers, and
crime thrillers and
apocalypse, that sort of stuff, end of the world stuff, yeah.
End of the world. And it's a question really about reading, because I find that somebody once said I was a promiscuous reader because I read across so many different genres, and I think,
all right, okay,
meaning that I could read everything from, I was reading Wilbur Smith alongside Isabel Allende,
yes,
and the other South American magical realism, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and but then I'd read something rom-com, and I'd read Joanna Harris, anything by, and historical, and so I just read, and thrillers and spies at Len Deighton. I loved Len Deighton, and very much a range of work, and I think that's why I found it quite hard to fix on the genre for me, because rom-com I love, but and that's I write comedy and I write romance quite well, so that's what I've stuck with.
Yes.
But I read widely, and I love children's books. Next question, I think this is the final one.
Hurrah!
Actually, I haven't been counting them, but I think it's the final one, and it's in the section on publishing.
Okay.
And it's how much marketing do you do for your books?
Not enough.
Okay.
It's the. There used to be a saying, I can't remember what it is, but it's something like building a better mousetrap. And you can build the best mousetrap in the world, but unless people know about it, you're not going to sell any. And it's the same with books. And you have to understand whether your book is going to be for sort of mass market commercial readers, or whether it's more niche, and so you have to sort of know what your expectation is going to be. And if you want to go mass market, then you certainly have to promote it. You have to think about advertising, paying for advertising, and things change over time, and what worked 2 years ago might not work now. Social media is usually a pretty good starting point. And this, what we're doing now, is hopefully will help our marketing efforts. So in answer to the question, no, I don't do enough marketing, and I should do more, and I will do more.
But then there's a risk that you spend all your time marketing books and not writing them, and I think that's a balance, isn't it? That we're trying to find that balance of keeping the product going, whilst selling the stuff that's already there. And somebody said on, I think it must have been Twitter recently, that they thought writing a book was really hard until they came to publishing it. And I responded by saying I thought publishing a book was quite hard until I came to try and sell the books. That the marketing and selling is the next stage, which is challenging for anyone. And especially in these times.
Of course, unless you get that 1 in 1,000 or maybe more who gets the great traditional publishing deal.
You are still having to do the social media. You're having to do the book tours. You're having to do. Not having to, but and creating a blog and.
But it's
creating
not your
podcasts.
responsibility to sell them. It's your responsibility as an author to respond to what somebody is saying. And I think it's a little bit easier, but rather than having to think, how am I going to market a book?
But as independents, we actually like having the freedom to do it how we want to do it.
We do.
I think that's a good thing.
That's why we do it, I think. Okay.
That's all I've got for you today, but there's plenty more questions in this book.
It's
more than enough.
We've had enough questions, I think.
So, as I said last time, I'm offering free PDF downloads of this book for people who sign up to my newsletter on my blog post. I think that's all for today.
I think so,
yes. Are we done?
Yeah.
So, if you enjoyed this video and you like this sort of thing, give us a thumbs up down below. And if you want notification when the next one's out, press the little bell button thing.
You have to subscribe first.
Subscribe first, and then press the little bell button thing. So, thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you again next time.
Me too.
Bye. Bye. Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Afternoon Tea from Bookends. And today we're going to pick
Who
up...
are you?
Get the flavour.
And so what I'll then think about the sort of core idea, and I'm going on too long, so graphically the relationship between customers and customers. Where do you get your ideas from? The thing I'm just finishing now. The thing.
If you enjoyed this video, it's not a video, is it?
You can say vodcast, or it's a video. People are watching a video, so it's oops. Cut.